Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And there's an ongoing trend recently. I think Lamley kicked it off, but you know what? It sparked some interest for me because it's all about top castings in your opinion. And so today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 Hot Wheels Premium JDM castings that I feel are the top in the premium lineup that Hot Wheels has offered. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at these. And remember, this is my top 10 list. It's an opinion. You may have differing opinions. You might feel like there should be castings that are in here that are not. You might call me crazy. Either way, it's my list. I'm gonna make it my way. And so let's go ahead and kick it off first with some honorable mentions. So these were castings that I didn't feel quite made it into my top 10, but they were close. They were ones that I appreciate, and I definitely love seeing them in their 1/64th form. And let's start it off with this guy right here. And of course, I'm talking about the Mitsubishi Eclipse, the 1995 Mitsubishi Eclipse to be exact, from the Fast and Furious. Of course, this is the lime green special that Brian was driving in the Fast and the Furious. It gets blown up, and that's fine because Mitsubishi has never been one of my favorite auto tuners for JDM, specifically the Eclipse. I can live with the Evo. But when it came to this car, not my favorite. Also the Mitsubishi 3000 GT, while it had its day, was not one of my favorite castings. So let's take a look at this bad boy up close. I'm sure many of you have already seen this, but coming in my honorable mention for the first one is this beautiful 95 Mitsubishi Eclipse. All right, we'll move that over to the side right here, and we'll get to my second one for my honorable mentions. And this might shock a few people to know that this is my honorable mentions, but it was hard. It was a list of 10. I had to really think about what I wanted in that list. I picked out the castings I felt represented the top 10 in my opinion. And so this one didn't quite make it in there. It's very close, but not quite. And of course, I am talking about this beautiful S15 Sylvia, also known as the 240 here in the United States. But if it's Japanese and Japanese badged, it's going to be the Silvia. And there was a lot of differences in them, but we'll talk about that a little bit later because there may be another S code in my top 10 where we can go a little more in depth on the actual coded cars like this. So it is a great casting. I love this car. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it was very close to cracking the top 10, but not quite. But it is an honorable mention, so it's definitely one that I love having in the collection, but it just didn't quite make it. And then last but not least, for the honorable mentions, is this beauty right here. And we just saw this recently come out in the premium version. And of course, I am talking about the 300Z or 300Z if you're in Europe. And this would have been a later generation. These came out right around the late 80s, and they were produced into all the way into 2000, and I want to say 2001 is when we saw the 300 body, this final body of the 300 go away, replaced by, of course, the 350, then the 370, and then now we're up to the 400Z. But this twin turbo beast is absolutely a monster on the track. But in its casting form, it just wasn't going to make it into my top 10. So it's going to sit on the side with the other three as the honorable mention. So again, not to detract from these beautiful castings, but they didn't have what it takes to make it into my top 10. And it's my top 10, so I can put whatever I want in my top 10. So let's go ahead and start that top 10, and we'll kick it off with number 10. And of course, you know we got to have some Honda love right out of the gate. And I am talking about this beautiful 1998 Honda Prelude. And this by far is probably one of my favorite Hondas. It's a car I wish I had owned in real life. In fact, I came real close to buying a right side drive Prelude really recently, actually, from old Mr. Mark McHot Wheels, not him specifically, but he was doing a detailing job for somebody who had one for sale in this color, and I just decided not to pull the trigger. But of course, the Honda Prelude is the 5th generation. We saw these come out in about 1996. They ran through 2001, and that was the end of the Prelude. We don't know if it's going to come back. It may, but you never do know. The one thing that I loved about this car was its big beefy motor. It had the H22A motor in it, and it was a plus and a minus. It was great to tune. It could get a lot of horsepower, but it was heavy. And this car had about a 3,100 pound curb weight with that big motor in it. And it was trying to run against cars that were sitting around the 26 to 2,500 pound curb weight in the same class, and it just was getting outclassed. You could get this in two formats, the basic entry-level Prelude, and then the little sportier SH. There wasn't any tuning to the engine. It was mostly aerodynamic pieces and a couple of things done in the air induction system. But great car, great casting, coming in at my number 10. All right, coming in at number 9, this is where we start getting into a little bit of heat. And of course, I am talking about this beauty right here. And this is officially the first car in the Nissan lineup that carried the GTR badge. And if you don't know what this car is, you've been sleeping under a rock, because this car is absolutely gorgeous. I love the lines of this car. This screams 70s power. This is kind of what the 70s looked like for import cars. And of course, I'm talking about the Nissan HT2000 GTR, AKA the Hakosuka. Came out in 1970, really 1971, but early 1970. And it was the first of the Nissan line to be given the GTR moniker. So guys, you GTR fans, this is where it all started. This is where the GTR badge started. And it is definitely earning its spot in my top 10, coming in at number 9. All right, number 8, another great casting. And I mentioned Mitsubishi earlier. Now, not as much of a fan of the Eclipse, definitely a fan of this guy right here. And of course, I am talking about the Mitsubishi Evolution, or Evo for short, and this is the Mitsubishi Evo 6. Now, the Evo 6, we saw this come out in, I would say, late 1998, 1999, and it had its run through 2001, I believe, when it was replaced by the Evo 7. We didn't see the 6 or the 7 here in the United States. It was the 8 before we started seeing production models of the Evo make it here to the US. But they were getting 6s and 7s in Canada and in Europe and Australia. But this is an absolute beast. It's an all-wheel drive beast. Beautiful MyVex system was introduced on this car. Just an absolutely beautiful car. And I am so glad to say that this is in my top 10, coming in at number 8. All right, moving into number 7. So number 7, another Nissan family. We saw the S15 earlier, but now we're moving into my favorite of the S series from Nissan. And of course, I am talking about the beautiful Nissan Silvia chassis S14. And so there's a lot to say about this chassis. The S14 is a great vehicle all around, especially if you like sliding sideways. This car is known for its drift capabilities. It's very easy to throw it sideways. Now, we got this car in the United States, but it was labeled as a Nissan 240. Completely different cars. That KA24 motor that came inside the Nissan 240 lacked power. It didn't have the same oomph as the SR20 DET or DETT, depending on whether you had the black or red top in your Silvia S14. And there was a lot more, options that you could get in the Silvia badged S14. Now, a lot of people don't know the S14 actually had 2 separate generations in its short time in existence. It had a front end change, and it happened about midway through production. Now, the first front end, that's the front end you guys are seeing on this car right here. Let me get it up here so you can see it. This is known as the Zenki front end. Zenki just means early in Japanese. This was their earlier front end. The Zenki, you can tell the difference. It's a more rounded look. And then about a year and a half into the production of the S14, they switched over to what they called the Kuki front end, which is the one everybody loves. And that's the more aggressive, sharpened front end nose that you see on a lot of the really great tuned ones. But you know what? At the end of the day, Zanky or kooky, you'd be kooky not to own one of these. So definitely a beautiful car. So here we are coming in at number 7, the beautiful and often misunderstood Nissan Silvia S14. Absolutely gorgeous. So there it is, number 7. And again, guys, like I said, you might have things higher on the list than me. You might have things lower on the list to me, and that's okay. And you might not even have some of these in your top 10. And again, that's okay. That's why it's Super JDM's list, and it's what I want on my list. So that's the way it works. When you control the camera, you control the list. All right, so moving down the line. Now, we're going to stay in the same family, but a little bit different badging on this car. And of course, I am talking about the beautiful and often misunderstood, but very beautiful still, the great and sometimes, I don't know, not getting the respect it should. And I am talking about the Datsun 510 Bluebird. Now, a little bit of facts about the 510 Bluebird that you guys should probably know. This car came out with a multitude of engine choices. It wasn't just a beast coming out of the box. In fact, this car was anything but a beast. This was meant to be more of a passenger vehicle. It turned into what was eventually a rally style beast. And in Japan, it is one of the more revered rally cars that they still use in some of the more classic races. Now, US and Canada, they got a version of this also, but it was not badged as the Datsun 510. It was the Datsun 1600. They were a lot different than the 510, and the 510 came in a multitude of bodies. You could, of course, get the 2-door, the 4-door, the 4-door coupe, and you could also get the 4-door wagon, and I think there was even a 2-door wagon at some point. But there was also many engine choices. Everything from a 1.2 liter all the way up to a 1.8 liter engine. And they were just, you know, ugly to some people. But you start to see them set up like this, especially in this BRE setup. There's no mistaking the beauty that can come out of a car like this in this boxy style. This is straight 70s style. This one is a 1970. They started producing these in around 1967 to 1968, and they had a very short run. But you try to find one of these on the market, especially in Japan, you're gonna pay a pretty penny. Just ask Mark McCotwell, he'll tell you about this one right here. So coming in at number 6, the beautiful Datsun 510 Bluebird. All right, here we go. We are cracking into the top 5. That means the heat is about to get real. And you've probably heard this if you've watched enough of my videos, but the car I'm about to put on here at number 5 is probably one of my favorite JDM real life cars, and one that I hope to have in my stable at some point in my life before I'm unable to drive a car. And the car that I'm talking about is the Mazda RX7, chassis code FD07. And this to me was a car that was well ahead of its time. And I'm not just talking about the engineering of the rotary engine that was turbocharged in this car. It came in 2 turbocharging options. You could get the single turbocharger, or you could get the twin turbocharger on this model. But whichever mode you had it in, it was an absolute screamer. Of course, this car started to get its due when we saw it launched by Dominic Toretto in The Fast and the Furious in his beautiful 95 RX7. And this is just a car that no matter where you are, if it's rolling down the road, the first thing people say is, "What is that?" And the second thing they say is, "Where did it go?" They're quick, they're light, they are a 2-seat monster, they are a very complex beast, they leak oil, they are a nightmare to deal with mechanically, but they are an absolutely beautiful car, and I love this casting. It's a great representation of the FD body style from Hot Wheels. So coming in at number 5, the Mazda FD07 RX7. All right, so as we move into the top 4, this was where I started to shift cars around and second guess myself and ask myself, do I really want it in that position? This is where it got really tough. So here we go. Coming in at number 4, another offering from Honda. It is the beautiful Honda S2000. Now, this was a lineage that started all the way back to the Honda S40, progressing through the S60 to the S80, and then eventually we're at the S2000. Now, it's not like they jumped a bunch of numbers. This was the first time that there was a 2.0 liter engine in one of the S series car. So the S2000 actually represents the fact that it is a 2.0 liter engine in this car. It is an absolute screamer. These cars are beautiful. They are well sculpted, and Hot Wheels did an amazing job. I grabbed Suki's car because why not? The pink shows off all the curves and edges, and I'm not afraid to rock pink. So you know what? I'd own a car in pink if I could drive an S2000 that looked like this. Coming in at number 4 is the Honda S2000 Suki's livery. So absolutely gorgeous. Love this car. Everything about it. Man, what a car. All right, here we go. Top 3. Now, when I picked this one in number 3, it could have easily been my number 1. And in fact, in my first little demonstration to myself of what I thought was my top 10, it sat in the number 1 spot. But then I second guessed myself, thought again, came up with, yep, it had to bump down because the 2 ahead of it just had too much heat. This is another car that is on my bucket list to have in my possession. I was a Subaru WRX STI owner at one time, not this specific one, but this one, of course, is the Subaru WRX STI, chassis code 22B. This is the epitome of Subaru at its finest in its rally car heyday. There is no car in this class that even compared to it short of the Evos coming out of Mitsubishi. This was an absolute screamer. It's an all-wheel drive car, 300 horsepower, 286 foot-pounds of torque monster. It was designed as a 2-door coupe and would eventually manifest itself into the later iterations into more of a 4-door sedan. But this is the body style that if you were to ask anybody the Subaru that they covet, it is the 22B. And I grabbed this one because this is what a Subaru should look like. Subaru blue, bronze wheels. These would be, sorry about that, these would be BBS wheels if this was an actual 1999 Subaru 22B. And this just screams Japanese perfection. So coming in at number 3, the Subaru WRX STI, chassis code 22B. Let's just marvel at number 3 for a second. Look at that. Gorgeous. All right, here we go. Top 2. Now, the top 2 are actually related to each other. How are they related to each other? Well, they're in the same family. One's a little older, one's a little newer. What am I talking about? Well, coming in at number 2, you might know it as Godzilla, but for this display, we're going to call it by its formal name. And of course, I am talking about the Nissan Skyline GTR R32, aka Godzilla. Now, I grabbed it in this HKS livery because this screams mid-90s. This screams early tuner. It's got the autocross badge on the side, and man, what a car. It was not called Godzilla for nothing. This car, out of the box, with its beautiful RB25 or RB26, depending on the setup you had on this car. Twin turbo on the RB26, single turbo on the R25, which was more of the GTS, but this car was a screamer. It is still one of the most sought after cars worldwide because this revolutionized how small 4-cylinder engines could transition into a beefier inline-6 turbo-powered forced induction beast. Put this car up against any of your modern muscle cars and you're going to see some guys who spent $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 on their brand new C8 Corvette get stomped. So coming in at number 2, the beautiful, the awe-inspiring Godzilla Nissan Skyline GTR R32. So we finally made it, guys. Glad you stayed with me. We're almost at 20 minutes, but you know what? I felt like I had to really put some detail into discussing these cars, and that's not going to stop with number one. It's number one for a reason. I said they're in the same family. Coming in at number one is the beautiful Nissan Skyline GTR R34. This is when Nissan really made their leap forward. The R33 from the R32 made some subtle changes. They lengthened the body. The RB26 was really hitting its stride. But when they got to this is where you started to see mastery in design at Nissan. They beefed up the RB26, adding additional horsepower and torque. The all-wheel drive format for this car made it an absolute screamer, whether it was autocross, whether it was rally, or if you shot out at the quarter mile, this car was decimating all. And this is probably one of the highest priced imported Nissans that you will find, short of a V-Spec in the R32 or R33. Just an R34 GTR in its standard baseline entry-level self will run you close to $100,000, and that is no lie. Check it out any day of the week. People are demanding that even at auction. This is my number one for a couple of reasons. It is the epitome of what JDM is all about. This is a culmination of a lot of years of work at Nissan to really develop one of the greatest sport performing cars ever made. That beautiful RB26 is timeless. It is a bulletproof engine with a bulletproof transmission to back it up. This one came in a V-Spec also. And if you guys are unaware what comes on the V-Spec option, literally that just means there's a little bit more aerodynamics added to the body. So you'll get a little better lip, a little better side skirt. They might adjust the wing a little bit differently. You get, I don't know if they show it on this casting, but you get the little air ducts here, the brake ducts right here. Those are added in the V-Spec. And then you get that beautiful all-wheel drive limited slip differential added onto the V-Spec. But that's what you're paying. You put that little V-Spec tag onto this car, it just jumped up from 100,000 to probably about 130,000. They're a little harder to find, and there's a reason why. They weren't produced in as many numbers. So there it is, guys. It may not be your list, but it's my list. This is the Super JDM Hot Wheel Premium JDM castings for me and what I love. And so if you've got a different list than mine, let me know. I mean, honestly, let me know. Let me know in the comments what your top 10 list is. I know Lamley went with top 10 Hot Wheels basic mainline castings of all time. That inspired me to jump on this video, which I've been thinking about for a long time anyway. The channel says it all, SuperJDMDiecast, guys. I've been a JDM fan since I was driving my first car, which was a 1992 Honda Prelude, and it's been a hook for me ever since. Every car that I have owned since 1992 has been JDM in some form, including my current ride. It's JDM. I guess it's not a racer, but it is my beautiful Toyota Tacoma TRD, but it's still JDM no matter how you look at it. But it's an appreciation that I'm always going to have, and I think they're emulated really well in these Hot Wheels premium castings. Thanks for sticking with me this long. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys got a little bit of information about some of these cars, and hopefully you got a good look at these models, and you can send me your list and let me know what you think. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. If you like what you see, please hit the thumbs up and give me a like. It really does help. And if you like what you see and you want to stick around for some more, definitely subscribe to the channel. It costs you $0, and you can hit the bell icon and it'll let you know anytime I post any new content to the channel. And it's just fun because the more people watching, it means you're interested in what I'm doing, and I really do appreciate everybody. But until next time, guys, this is SuperJDMDiecast, and I am out.